at least once a month in Austin while he was at school, let alone when he would come home for a break. So there was a lot of contact. There was a lot going on, but
for me, in hindsight, when I think about what to tell parents, if they see some change in their demeanor, when I start trying to piece things together, which is, again, what you like to torture yourself with in hindsight, when he was with us that summer before he went to school and the previous summer, there would be instances where he would be angry over something, and his reaction to something that would be trivial would show too much anger. Now, that's a flash of anger. It's not a constant thing. It's not a monthly thing. So you're wondering, well, what on earth does that mean? But I'll give you an example that surprised me one day, which is when we were at a very nice restaurant in California, and we had our own menu typed up with the name of the person that's going to be at the table. And the Lee's name was not included. It was just mother and father. So we had...
They made a mistake.
They made a mistake, and he was very, very angry about it. And that's not like him. I wonder, was that my big red flag to think that there was something going on? I don't know, James.
I think that parents we have got to take our discussions with our children to another level, which is we have to have a discussion about mental health and depression and suicide, and be able to talk about using the S word, so that we have to be able to talk to our children about, look, I need for you to tell me if you ever think about harming yourself. And if you feel that you're afraid to tell me, then let's find someone else you can talk to and deal with it that way. Because we have to make sure they understand that these problems are temporary and suicide is permanent. And that's the wrong kind of solution to find for a temporary problem.
It sounds like knowledge, as you pointed out, Kathleen, when you started to speak about these issues and what you've seen and how, as you look back, is really the key. Not unlike anything else in life, you can look at something. We as parents can look at things, or as professionals, or as fill-in-the-blank role that we might have in our lives, look at things, and if we don't have the proper tools to really recognize what it is we're seeing, then we can't address it appropriately. Am I getting close to what you're honing in on?
That's a fair summary. I just I wish I had some. You wish you had a checklist. You had a checklist, and you could. But it's the checklist to me that might be generic. You're going to have individuals that may not fit the typical checklist. So absolutely information is critical. I don't think that you're ever going to have some kind of 100% guarantee that if I hit these boxes, I'm going to recognize an issue. But absolutely, I think that there should be better education required so that parents don't ever have to go through what Mark and I have been going through, and will continue to.
When we return, how the Texas law works. Stay with us. Welcome back to Mindset, Mental Health News and Information. I'm your host, James Curtis. I continue my conversation with Kathleen and Mark Walker about the law that they worked on after the loss of their son, Lee, how that law works, and what it means to the Walkers to have worked on it. The bill, well, the law now, that has been signed by the governor requires campuses to give information in a meaningful way to incoming students in colleges and universities in the state of Texas. It's a few very succinct lines that really get directly to the point. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, I mean, the issue was we had some issues with the public versus private university point, some issues with the length of the information to be provided, concerns about, we already provide this kind of information, which is, to me, very woefully inadequate. My experience in Lee's orientation was Texas is very organized. At UT Austin, we're talking the flagship public university for the state, and he's an honor student. So you're coming in and getting some additional orientation time that perhaps others do not. But during all this orientation time, we were given a list of, useful phone numbers on a little flyer, but that's it. But you don't really want to, honestly, as a parent, who wants to listen to that? You want to think about positive things. You're worried enough about your child without thinking I'm sending him or her off for a potential suicide concern during the college experience. So I think that just handing off some phone numbers is not enough. Texas has already a Be the One program, which was well done, a short clip, video clip from students saying, here's what we're going through, Mom and Dad. Here are some things that, may be an issue for you to be watching for. I would have liked to have watched that. I would have liked my son to have seen it. Maybe nothing would have come of it in what we experienced, but I would have felt better if he had. And if we had.
James, in the months as we were reeling through the interminably long days and weeks and months after losing Lee, and asked many questions and looked at many issues, we knew and realized that they're really kind of part of an overall problem that we have in society of the stigmatization of mental health issues and depression. And we began to understand that we really need to do something about that. I didn't know, after all of this and all the preparation to go to school, didn't know that nearly a third of the incoming students suffered from major depression that should require some sort of intervention, some sort of assistance. We don't know the numbers. Those numbers are horrific. It's not 5%. It's not 10%. It's a third. If I remember when I started college, where they actually did the lineup about look to your left and look to your right, and one of you is going to be gone in a year. They could say that to the students who are entering college and say, look to your left and look to your right, and one of you is going to have depression this year. And if we can achieve something through legislation, it will be much more than we could ever hope to accomplish on our own. And so, to go back to your comment a few minutes ago, it's a fairly straightforward issue. We're not trying to prescribe exactly what is to be conveyed in the message, because that's best left to the professionals. What we're trying to do is make sure that a message is conveyed in a manner that is designed to best capture the attention of the audience. And that's what this bill was about.
Yeah, and I certainly would like at some point to also have some provision where if a student is not attending classes, that instead of it being just a matter between school and student, to have that trigger the professor to report in to the health services office, so that perhaps someone can communicate with the student to see if they need help, because that is a sign for some students that they're having issues with depression.
I want to return to the parent component. For parents who experienced this tragedy, how do you take care of yourselves? How are you keeping going?
Well, James, that for me is a day-to-day question. I have to very much focus on living in the moment. Lee was our only son. He was our only child. And I have to say that there are some days that I don't really have the motivation to get up. And I have a very hard time facing life in the future. But my choice is not to end my life like Lee did, but my choice is to try to do something meaningful with whatever I've got left.
There is no, the pain is about as great today as it was a year ago.
Absolutely.
And someone we know said that you always walk with a limp after this.
Very good thing.
And it is Lee and I did everything together, very close. And this is the absolute worst, most devastating thing I think anybody can go through. And it is a day-to-day thing. You try to find other reasons to put meaning into your life. And that's depression. Depression is it's blind to race. It's deaf to politics. It doesn't respect social or economic classes. It affects all sorts of people. And if there is anything that we can do through this process, through this legislation, through a UT system funding program we're organizing and fundraising, that at some point, James, will help save just one life, that will help us. And hopefully there will be some set of parents or a guardian or uncle or close friend or whatever who won't know the horrible pain that we experience. And so I guess the message is, and what's been helpful is, you're not alone. And this is something that you think will never happen to you. It always happens to someone else, but it does happen. And for those people, they need to who have gone through this, you have entered a club for which the price of admission is far too high. But there are other people who go through there, and there are people who will share experiences and support. And among the best things that can simply be said is, I'm very sorry for your loss, and I'd like to help, even if it is to just sit with you and let me hear you bear witness to your lost loved one.
Yeah. Has this process of working on this helped?
Me, yes, because it gives me something to really focus on, spend a lot of time and effort trying to make a positive outcome and to try to do something. I failed my son, but I don't want to fail someone else.
I would say that for me, the legislation is Vincent honorably, it's trying to mark that he was here and an important person on the planet to us. But it's not, to me, serving as healing what's left of my soul. I don't really know that is possible. It is a burning, horrible feeling of devastation that you deal with every day, and you try to figure out what is important in your life. If you learn something from it, it's humbling, and you try to get right with yourself more so than ever in the past on helping others and being humble. That's about all I can try to do day in and day out.
My sincerest thanks to Mark and Kathleen Walker, and thank you also to Dr. Doreen Marshall with AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, online at afsp.org. That's it for today's show.